Hello everyone. My name is Elise. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. We are back with another video in my indie publisher taste test series. And this time we are celebrating Two Lines Press. I love and adore Two Lines Press. I've talked about them so many times on the channel, and I felt like it was well past due that I did their publisher taste test. I also wanted to do that this year because they are one of the nonprofit publishers who lost some of their NEA grant funding and need your support. So hopefully you'll get to hear me talk about some of their books, talk about them as a publisher, and it might inspire you to buy books from them or donate to them or just find a little bit more out about them in general. If you haven't seen one of these videos before, essentially what I do is I'm going to start the video by talking about the publisher as a whole, give you some baseline information about them, and then I will go over the TBR for the video, and I'll have standalone reviews for each book. These reviews are a little bit longer than the typical review I would do on my channel, so they're going to be about 5 minutes each. And then at the end of the video, I'll give kind of a wrap up on my experience with the publisher reading these books, what I think you can expect from the books that they publish based on what I've read previously and what I'm reading for the video, all that good stuff. So we're gonna go ahead and dive into the publisher information and start there. Two Lines Press is situated underneath the Center for the Art of Translation. And the Center for the Art of Translation does many wonderful things, like workshops, like grants, like education, lots of wonderful things that they do. But they also have the imprint Two Lines Press, which publishes only works in translation. So all of the books that they publish are translated from non-English languages into English. And they do also have a special emphasis on underrepresented languages. And I think that's also really key for them. They might not publish the volume, but they are really giving a huge amount of diversity to the languages that are getting translated. You can see that in one of their Calico series was translated from the Swahili. It's the first ever English translation from Swahili, things like that. So they're really doing some special things with underrepresented languages that get translated into English. Their self-purported mission statement for what they publish is they're committed to publishing daring and original literature in translation in striking editions. And striking editions indeed. I think Two Lines Press has some of the best cover design out there. They are all so unique and gorgeous and fit with the books really well. They also publish some beautiful hardcover editions of books, and small press literature does not often get hardcover releases. That's pretty rare. And they do these beautiful, normally cloth bound hardcover, you'll see some later, editions that are just gorgeous. I do think they invest a lot in the packaging of the book, and I think that matters. I personally think that matters. So many beautiful editions that they have, and they tend to publish 8+ books a year. At this point in time. Typically they publish 2 editions in their Calico series a year. That series I've talked about so many times on my channel because I collect that series. This is where they take either a language or an area and collate an anthology based on that language or area or theme. And for example, let's say they say we're gonna do an anthology of Japanese horror short stories. They let the translators pick the works that are going to be in those collections. And each collection is a wide variety of translators and a wide variety of authors that they're choosing to translate from. So not only are you getting to test out authors, but you're getting to test out translators as well and see if you might have a similar style to the translator, and then maybe pick up some other things that they've translated. So it's such a smart series. I love that series, and I would highly encourage other people to read it as well if you're trying to get a wider sampling of authors and translators to see what you might like. These are great places to start and then find your favorite stories or poems and go from there. The rest of the books outside of the Calico series are going to be mainly novels, although there are some pieces of nonfiction and poetry that are translated as well. A quick note about their website that I do think is really important. Two Lines Press does reader guides for almost everything that they publish, especially the more recent stuff. So reader guides for a really large selection of their books, and these are all available for free on their website. I will do a little bit of a cutaway of a screen recording so you can see what a reader guide might look like. It's a single page that gives some information and some questions about the book. And I think this is such a lovely resource to provide not only to just the casual reader, but this is also a really good resource for book clubs, or if you're going to be using one of their books for educational purposes at a school. This is a great way to kind of have a lesson plan already done for it. So please check those out if you're reading from Two Lines Press and you want to be more ingratiated in thinking about the book critically. Another thing that I want to talk about with Two Lines Press is Two Lines Press is a collaborator for the Stevens Prize. They collaborate on this prize with the UK-based publisher Perrine Press, and this is a translation prize. So the prize is going to a translator, and specifically to a first-time translator. So every year, a different language and book is chosen, and entrants are invited to translate that piece of text. The winning entrant is offered a contract to then translate that book in full, and then it will be both published simultaneously in the UK by Perrine Press and the US by Two Lines Press. It also comes with a mentorship that the translator gets in the French Pyrenees Mountains. But it's such a cool prize because translators, are often overlooked when really that book wouldn't exist if the translator didn't do their work of bringing it to life in another language and making it readable in another language. So for this prize to exist, to bring out first-time translators that are really trying to get into that work and supporting them, not just financially, but with a mentorship and their first book deal, that is a huge thing to someone's career. And I think it's an amazing prize to be a part of. Two Lines Press is a recent collaborator. So Perrine Press has been doing this for a while now. And I'm so glad that they're a part of it. So now we can get the books in the US as well. And I can't wait for them to announce who the next winner is and what the next book is going to be. So if that sounds interesting to you, you might want to pick up the next winner from Two Lines Press when it comes out, or one of the previous winners. So we're going to leave the general information there for now. Again, I will talk a little bit more about the publisher and the style of books and writing at the end of the video. Let's quickly talk about the TBR so we can start reading some of these books. I always pick a new release to be in these videos. The other books can be sort of whatever I want them to be. I try to get a good range of what the publisher is producing. So for this video, the new release is going to be Mending Bodies. This is by Lai-chu, and it's translated by Jacqueline Leung from the Chinese, and of course, published by Two Lines Press. So the premise of this is so interesting. It is one of my most anticipated releases for this year. I pre-ordered this book. And this takes place in a dystopian society in which the government has incentivized people conjoining with one another, particularly partners conjoining with one another. So actually sewing themselves together and becoming sort of one entity. And our main character seems to be grappling with the decision to conjoin or not conjoin. And that just sounds so good. So I'm really excited to get into this, and hopefully it lives up to the hype, my own hype. So that is Mending Bodies. And then we have Two Lines Press best-selling book to date, and that's why I'm putting it in this video, although I do want to read it as well. And that is Woodworm by Layla Martínez. This is translated from the Spanish by McDermott and Sophie Hughes. Yes, this you may have seen before. Again, it's their best-selling work so far, and this had a big boon last year in popularity. It really broke through into mainstream publishing. Hard for a small publisher to do, so very exciting for them. This is a revenge novel. It is a literary horror novel. I actually got to see Layla speak about this novel in person when I was at the Portland Book Festival last year, maybe. And I'm really excited to read it based on the way that she talked about it. There is a lot of autobiographical elements to this, so I'm curious to see how that plays out. I love a little bit of revenge. I love a little bit of haunted house situation, so really excited for Woodworm. And this is one of those beautiful cloth-bound hardcovers that I was talking about. So gorgeous. It has some illustrations inside as well. So just a beautiful production. And the next book is actually also a cloth-bound hardcover by them. This is Self-Portrait in Green by NDiaye, translated from the French by Jordan Stump. This is the 10th anniversary edition that they've released of this book. And this I chose, one, because I've heard amazing things about the author. I haven't even hauled this yet. But in the haul that you'll see next, whenever that will be, I bought 2 books by this author. So I'm really hoping I like this one because I have another of hers on my shelves. This one I chose not just because she's so beloved, and Two Lines Press, I believe, has translated everything that she's written into English. But this is a creative or experimental memoir. And I wanted to have some type of nonfiction piece in here as well. So that is Self-Portrait in Green. It's talking about green women. Don't really know what's going on there, but I'm excited to find out. I hummed and hawed about whether or not to put a calico book in this taste test video, but I cover them so much on my channel already that I decided to leave it out. And also because anthologies are particularly hard to review. So I'm leaving those out for now and just sticking with this 3. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of what the publisher produces. So with that, I will go away, read these books, and I will come back and talk to you once I finished one. I finished the first book for this publisher taste test video, and that is Woodworm by Layla Martínez, translated from the Spanish by Sophie Hughes and Annie McDermott. And I really enjoyed this book. This has so many interesting, smart layers built into it. So again, I'll give you the premise really quickly. This is a revenge story. So we are following 3 generations of women. We sort of go back and forth between some of the generations, and they all live in this one house in a rural part of Spain. They are very poor and living in an area where all of the wealthy families take advantage of people who are in a socioeconomic class below them. And this has gone on for generations and generations, hence why we get the generational perspective of it. The origins of this house, because it's also a haunted house novel, is that it was built by, the back calls him a small-time hustler who wants to control his wife, which is the grandmother generation that we're getting the perspective of. And the house is sort of forever cursed from that point on, and it is inhabited by many spirits. So anyone who dies in the village and their soul is at rest, they end up at the house. And only some generations of these women can see the spirits and some cannot. We not only get the relationship between the 3 women, of which there is a lot of vitriol within themselves, and we have some of the women who sort of see that as a generational curse, and some who see it differently. And then we also get the women's interaction with the villagers. This book, and I know this from the talk with Layla Martínez that I got to attend, is really about justice and revenge and the interesting tension that maybe lives between the 2, because these 3 women have no legal recourse to justice at all because of the amount of corruption in their village, because of the lack of opportunity and the lack of compassion. And what do you do when you have been victimized over and over and over again? And the only way you feel like you can seize power is with revenge or violence. And it's trying to place the reader in that conundrum. Like, what would you do if this was your life and generation after generation after generation had to live this way? What would be your breaking point? And I think that's so interesting to sit with as the reader and really try and grapple with. I just really enjoyed this. I enjoyed the writing. I can't wait for Layla Martínez to come out with something else that gets translated into English. And yeah, I understand why this was such a hit. I think a lot of people would love this. It's not gonna have the gore factor maybe of some other horror. And while it does have spirits, that is not necessarily like the horror element going on. I think the horror element going on is like the real life horror of exploitation and corruption and violence. So that's what you're getting when you get into Woodworm, but really enjoyed it. Such a smart book. I'm happy to have finally read it. So that is the first book down. So next up, I think I'm gonna pick up Mending Bodies, and I will check back in with you once I finish that one. I finished the next book for this video, so we're going to talk about Mending Bodies really quickly by Lai-chu, translated from the Chinese by Jacqueline Leung. So this one I was so excited about because the premise sounded extremely unique and interesting to me. I am in kind of a dystopian kick right now, and this fit the bill. So I mentioned before, this is a future dystopian society in which the government has incentivized conjoining with your partner, and our main character is kind of in the process of contemplating that decision, or at least that's what the blurb says. What this book is actually about is more about the thought processes she goes through in order to decide to conjoin. So from the very beginning of the novel, you know that she has conjoined with someone because that is the first chapter. She's living in a conjoined body. And then we go back and get the lead up to that decision. This book does a couple interesting things with form in particular. So part of this novel is a dissertation that the main character is writing. So our main character is in graduate school, and her dissertation starts out by condemning conjoinment, and then the further along in the process she goes, kind of in collaboration with her advisor, she decides that what she's actually drawn to is the idea of why someone would get conjoined in the first place, and it feels like for part of her research she needs to become conjoined. And then we get even more after that, but that's as much of the setup as I'll give. So part of this is we get the actual dissertation that the narrator is writing, and while in theory I think that's a smart idea, I don't think the execution actually played out very well. The sections that were the dissertation did not feel like a dissertation. It felt like a diary entry. It was not scientific enough, and I feel like if you're gonna lean into that form, you really have to actually lean into the form. So that was kind of a disappointment for me. And the other part of this is this book I think was just a disappointment in general. I could not follow the thought threads that our protagonist was having, like at all whatsoever. It did not make any sense to me why she was making the decisions that she was. And maybe you could chalk that up to like she's a confused and conflicted narrator, but that just didn't feel like it was actually on purpose. And if it was, I don't think it was laid out in a way for the reader to be able to get that. I'm really sad about this because, again, the premise is so strong. I think could have been very fascinating, but this has more to do with our narrator's conversations with other people around conjoinment that are very nebulous and not thought through enough for me. I also feel like this book was trying to talk about disability, but it was confusing what it was trying to say. And maybe if I listened to an interview with the author, I would have a better understanding. And what I was hoping ultimately this book would be talking about is the governmental exploitation that would come with an incentivization like this. It's sort of very subtly in the background. When I think about that, it's like, oh, clearly that allows further exploitation as a worker, because now these two brains are only taking up the space of one body, but yet they can work two jobs, right? They can sort of work endlessly where one person is awake and doing their occupation while the other person is kind of asleep in the background, and then they can flip, and that I just like, it didn't go into that at all, and I thought that was such rich territory for the book to go into. So ultimately, yeah, a disappointment on a number of levels. I am going to be sadly unhauling this, and if I try to think about who this is for, it's hard for me to imagine the type of reader that is really going to love this. But I would say potentially if you like stuff like Pure Color by Sheila Heti, where it's a lot of ideas on the page that aren't meant to be fully fleshed out, but there's just a lot of ideas there for you to maybe sit with and unpack later on. This could be for you. If you like a very straightforward main character who's just kind of like plotting her thoughts on the page as we go very linearly, even though the book is not told linearly, our character feels very linear, right? It's just like, I have this thought, and then I have this thought, and then I have this thought. There's no kind of going back and reevaluating things. So if you like that straightforward thought process, this could also be for you. But ultimately a miss for me. So sadly, Mending Bodies was not a hit, but we'll hope that the third book in this video is going to be a hit for me. So next I'm going to pick up a self-portrait in green and see how that one goes. So I'll see you in a second. Welcome back. I have finished Self-Portrait in Green, and let me tell you, this was phenomenal. Oh, it was so good. This is absolutely a 5-star read for me. One of the best things I've read in a while. Oh, I absolutely loved it. And this one's gonna be a really confusing one to talk about because I'm not really sure what to say about this book, but I'm gonna do my darndest. So, as I said before, this is a creative memoir, experimental memoir. In a lot of ways, it does feel like a novel because it's very concept heavy instead of being like data point heavy, like maybe a lot of memoirs are. So before I said this is about green women. So the author is going through her life and pulling out all of these green women that she has identified that she's met throughout her life. Green women are hard to explain. They're definitely kind of like in the most vague terms, just meaningful women in her life that break convention in some type of way, are hard to quantify or box in, and we just get a series of these green women throughout her life. And this book makes absolutely no fucking sense. It makes absolutely no fucking sense. I did not know what was happening at all throughout the entire book, and yet I loved it, and it's because of the writing. The writing is so spectacular in this book, like truly some of the best writing I've read in a long time, and I'm so glad I have another one of her books on my shelves because I can't wait. But yeah, let me give you a sample of the writing in the beginning just so you can get a sense, because it's really hard for me to describe. So I'm gonna read just the first kind of paragraph or so. So it says, December 2003. Evening has come, and the Garonne is rising hour after hour in the dark. We all know the river can rise 9 meters above its banks before it overflows, thanks to the levees surrounding the village. That much we know. It's the first thing you learn when you make up your mind to settle in this place, eternally under threat from the floodwaters of the Garonne. What we don't know this evening is what's coming tonight or tomorrow. If, like the last time, 10 months ago, the water will stop at the top of the levees, or as it did 20 years ago, spill over, submerge the streets, invade the ground floor of the houses, sometimes the second floor, sometimes the whole house. That's just a taste of the beginning, and ooh, like, doesn't it flow so well? It's so evocative, it's so easy to visualize, and I just loved it. It's so good. When the writing is spectacular like that, it doesn't really matter what's going on. This is like the definition of like, I would read her grocery list and still enjoy it. So that far and above the thing that sold me. Also with this book, there are a lot of images throughout. So I'll give you the image on the first page, for example. So this is the image when it begins. Similarly to the prose, you don't really know what the images are all about. It's not 100% clear, and yet they're lovely anyway, and give you a vibe, so to speak, of what the text is talking about. The other thing is this is really short, and I think that works in the book's favor because you don't really know what's going on. If it had gone on longer, I think it would have lost its magic, and this really was spellbinding. That's the best way to put it, both with the green women themselves, but with the prose. And I just felt enraptured by what I was reading, and I do think that's in part due to the length of this. So yeah, just so many smart decisions I feel like with this book, and writing truly next level. Because I don't know what's happened, I don't really know what else to say other than you should absolutely read this. You should absolutely read this and tell me what you thought, because my God, was it so good. It will definitely be in my best books of the year. And I will say, really interesting to come right off of Mending Bodies, which I also didn't know what the fuck was happening in this book, but did not like it. And yet in this book, I loved it. So this just goes to show total comprehension is not what makes a book shine, at least for me as a reader. It's really the effect that the book has on me. This effect was very bleh, very flat, and this effect was magical. So yeah, we have read the 3 books for this video. So let me hold them up for you. And now that we have read these 3 books, let's talk about my reading experience with Two Lines Press as a whole. So obviously with these 3, you can already get a sense that Two Lines Press does have a slight bent towards literary horror. Now, they publish lots of stuff outside of that, but I do think, especially over the last couple of years, Two Lines Press has really leaned into that as a more niche genre that they are publishing. So that's the first thing. If you really like literary horror, I think Two Lines Press would be a good publisher for you to check out. In addition to just being a really good resource if you are wanting to read more translated literature. Obviously, everything they publish is translated, and I didn't say this at the very front of the video, but this video is coming out in August, and the reason why I'm doing this video in August is because these are all women in translation, and August is Women in Translation Month. So if you're trying to build that into your reading more, this is absolutely a publisher that you should check out. I do think that they are really towing the line between some stuff that is going to be more accessible to the casual reader like Woodworm, and then stuff that's going to be less accessible but still absolutely phenomenal. So whether you want to pick something up that has more plot, is going to be really intriguing just at surface level, even though this does have a lot more going on underneath, or you're wanting to stretch yourself with something like this, or even this one, honestly, I think Two Lines Press could be a really good place for you to dive into. They do publish slightly more women than men. And I think what I've read from them thus far really does, in general as a whole, there is stuff outside of this, fall into slightly dark. So similar to that horror leaning bent, they publish some slightly darker fiction, and that kind of runs through a lot of what they publish. We'll leave it there for now. Hopefully you've been intrigued about Two Lines Press as a publisher. Please let me know if you have read from them before, and if so, which book and what you thought about it. And let me know what you thought of these books in the comments down below. And I will see you soon in the next publisher taste test video, whenever that might be. Bye.